My name is Madison Parker, and at 27 years old, I never expected to be standing frozen on my graduation stage while my Uncle Bradley ripped the microphone from the dean. "You are embarrassing this family," he shouted, his face reddening. "You clean toilets to pay for school." My relatives erupted in laughter. I stood silent, mortified, until the dean cleared his throat. "We have a special guest." When my husband Jacob walked up and held my hand, their jaws dropped because. Let me know where you are watching from, and subscribe to hear what happened next. Growing up as a Parker meant one thing above all else: appearances mattered. My childhood home in Connecticut was a sprawling colonial with perfectly manicured lawns and an interior that looked like it belonged in Architectural Digest. But behind those pristine walls lived a family obsessed with status, wealth, and what others thought of us. My father, Richard Parker, built his investment firm from the ground up. He worked 80-hour weeks and expected nothing less than perfection from his family. My mother, Elizabeth, dedicated her life to climbing the social ladder of our affluent community. Between charity galas and country club luncheons, she barely had time to ask about my school day. Then there was my older sister, Amanda. Amanda was everything a Parker should be: valedictorian, homecoming queen, and accepted to Princeton on early decision. She played 3 instruments, spoke fluent French, and never had a hair out of place. My parents beamed with pride at every recital and award ceremony. And then there was me, Madison Parker, the family disappointment. It wasn't that I was a bad student or got into trouble. I simply had different interests. While Amanda excelled at debate and economics like my father, I found myself drawn to science. I spent hours collecting insects in the backyard, conducting simple experiments in my room, and reading books about female scientists who changed the world. "What are you going to do with bugs and test tubes?" my father would ask, not bothering to hide his disappointment. "The real money is in business and law. Look at your cousins." My cousins were all attending Ivy League schools or prestigious liberal arts colleges. Family gatherings were torture, as Uncle Bradley, my father's older brother, and the family patriarch, would parade their accomplishments, while my parents would conveniently forget to mention what I was doing. Uncle Bradley was the worst of them all. He had an even larger investment firm than my father, and never let anyone forget it. His favorite phrase was, "Parkers don't settle for mediocrity," usually said while looking directly at me. I remember one particular Thanksgiving when I was 14. I had just won my school's science fair with a project on sustainable energy. I was so excited to share the news that I brought my certificate and project photos to dinner. "Look at this," Uncle Bradley laughed, passing my photos around the table. "Madison wants to save the planet while the rest of us are trying to make something of ourselves." Everyone laughed. Even my mother gave a polite chuckle. The only one who didn't was Amanda, who at least had the decency to look uncomfortable. That was the day I realized that no matter what I achieved, it would never be enough for the Parkers, not unless I followed their blueprint for success. High school brought more of the same. While I excelled in AP biology and chemistry, earning top scores and recommendations from my teachers, my achievements went largely unnoticed at home. When I made the honor roll, my mother would nod absently. When I won the state science competition, my father asked why I couldn't have chosen debate instead. Amanda graduated summa cum laude from Princeton and immediately landed a job at a prestigious consulting firm in New York. My father bought her a Mercedes. My mother threw her a party with 200 guests. When it came time for my college applications, I knew exactly what I wanted: a strong program in biochemistry with research opportunities. I was accepted to several good state universities with scholarship offers. State school? Uncle Bradley snorted when he heard. "No Parker has ever gone to a state school." My father pulled me aside after dinner. "Madison, we've set aside money for Princeton, Yale, or Columbia. That's it. If you insist on pursuing this science nonsense at a public university, you're on your own." I could have given in. I could have applied to Princeton and studied economics like Amanda. I could have followed the Parker path to success, but something inside me refused to bend. "Then I'll pay for it myself," I told him. The look of shock on his face almost made the uncertainty ahead worth it. Almost. My acceptance letter to the University of Connecticut to study biochemistry arrived on a rainy April morning. I ran downstairs letter in hand, hoping for at least a begrudging congratulations from my parents. Yukon. My mother looked up from her coffee, her expression a mixture of confusion and disappointment. But we discussed Princeton. No, you discussed Princeton, I corrected her. I've always wanted to study biochemistry. My father didn't even look up from his newspaper. You know our position, Madison. We don't pay for state schools or science degrees that won't lead anywhere. I had anticipated this response, but it still stung. That evening, I sat in my room calculating costs. Tuition books, housing, food. It all added up to a staggering amount. Even with my partial merit scholarship, I would need loans and a job. Possibly multiple jobs. When move-in day arrived, my parents didn't come. Amanda drove me instead, helping carry my few belongings into the dormitory. They'll come around, she said as she hugged me goodbye. Just give them time. I was assigned a roommate named Haley, a music education major from a small town in Massachusetts. Unlike me, Haley came from a family where money was always tight, but love and support were abundant. She immediately took me under her wing. You need a job. My cousin works in campus facilities. They're always hiring, she told me during our first week. It's not glamorous, but it pays better than the library. That's how I found myself a Parker cleaning university bathrooms at 5 in the morning before classes. The work was exactly as unglamorous as Haley had warned. I scrubbed toilets, mopped floors, and emptied trash while most students were still asleep. My first paycheck barely covered my textbooks. I picked up a second job waiting tables at a campus cafe on weekends and evenings. Between classes, studying, and working 25 hours a week, I was perpetually exhausted. My first semester grades weren't what I'd hoped for, mostly B's with 1 C in calculus. I called home, needing some encouragement, only to have my mother remind me that Amanda maintained a 4.0 while participating in 6 extracurriculars. Thanksgiving break came, and I returned home with dark circles under my eyes and 15 pounds lost from my already slim frame. As we gathered around the dining table with extended family, Uncle Bradley wasted no time. So, Madison, I hear you're getting quite an education in janitorial services, he said loudly enough for everyone to hear. Learning how to clean toilets must be so fulfilling after turning down Princeton. The table erupted in polite laughter. My cousin Sophia, who was studying finance at Yale, gave me a pitying look. Actually, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I'm learning about protein synthesis and cellular biology. I just happen to clean to pay for it. Well, at least you'll have job security, Uncle Bradley replied. People will always need their toilets cleaned. More laughter. I pushed food around my plate and excused myself early. Back at school, I threw myself into my work and studies with renewed determination. I wasn't just going to pass, I was going to excel. Parker expectations be damned. During my sophomore year, I found my rhythm. I studied between shifts during lunch breaks and late into the night. I connected with Professor Winters, who ran the university's biochemistry research lab. Despite my work schedule, I begged her for a chance to assist with research. Most of our positions are reserved for juniors and seniors, she explained. But I could use help with data entry and basic lab maintenance. It doesn't pay much. I don't care about the pay, I told her. I care about the experience. The lab became my sanctuary. While I still cleaned bathrooms and served coffee, those jobs were just means to an end. In the lab, I was learning what I loved. Professor Winters noticed my dedication and gradually entrusted me with more responsibilities. By junior year, I was running my own small experiments under her guidance. I was surviving on 4 hours of sleep most nights, but for the first time, I felt like I was exactly where I should be. That Christmas, I made the dean's list. I called home with the news, hoping finally for some recognition. That's nice, dear, my mother said distractedly. Did you hear Amanda got promoted? She's the youngest senior consultant in her firm's history. When I hung up, I didn't cry. I was beyond tears at this point. Instead, I applied for an additional research grant and picked up more lab hours. My chosen family grew, as my biological family continued to disappoint. Haley remained my steadfast roommate and friend. Professor Winters became a mentor. The other lab assistants became my colleagues and friends. We celebrated each other's achievements, supported each other through failures, and never once did anyone mock me for cleaning toilets to fund my education. During senior year, I was invited to present our lab's research at a regional conference. It was my first major academic recognition, and I was ecstatic. I sent my parents an invitation, not really expecting them to come but hoping. They didn't. Uncle Bradley called instead. A science conference? Is that really the best use of your time? Your cousin Sophia just accepted a position at Goldman Sachs. Starting salary of $150,000. What will you make with your little bacteria experiments? Minimum wage, plus tips. I hung up on him, something I'd never dared to do before. Then I went to the conference and gave the best presentation of my life. Our research on enzyme inhibitors received attention from several pharmaceutical companies. Professor Winters was beaming with pride. "You have a real future in this field, Madison," she told me. "Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." That night, I decided I wouldn't attend the next Parker family gathering. Instead, I celebrated my success with the people who actually supported me. My real family. It was in organic chemistry too, during my sophomore year, that I first noticed Jacob Miller. He sat 2 rows ahead of me, always asked the most insightful questions, and seemed to solve complex molecular structures effortlessly. He wasn't flashy or arrogant about his intelligence like many of the pre-med students. He simply had a quiet confidence that I admired. We were paired as lab partners for the semester project, a stroke of luck that would change my life in ways I couldn't imagine. "You're the girl who works in Professor Winters' lab, right?" he asked during our first session. I nodded, surprised he knew who I was. "I've read your notes on the enzyme catalysis experiment. Brilliant approach to the problem." No one in my family had ever called my work brilliant. Not once. Jacob came from a background even more humble than my current situation. Raised by a single mother in rural Pennsylvania, he had earned a full academic scholarship to UConn. Like me, he worked multiple jobs to cover expenses overnight, stocking at a grocery store and tutoring on weekends. "Sleep is overrated," he joked, when I asked how he managed it all. "I'll sleep when I've changed the world." Our partnership quickly evolved from classmates to friends. We would spend hours in the library quizzing each other on molecular compounds and reaction mechanisms. Sometimes we'd grab dollar coffees from the vending machine at 2 in the morning, the only other souls awake being the campus security guards. Jacob had a brilliant mind for biochemical applications. During one of our late-night study sessions, he shared an idea he'd been developing. What if we could create an enzyme inhibitor that targets only the defective proteins in certain genetic disorders, he explained, sketching out molecular structures on a napkin. Current treatments are like using a sledgehammer when you need a scalpel. His concept was innovative, but needed refinement. I found myself offering suggestions, pointing out potential obstacles, proposing solutions. By sunrise, we had filled a dozen napkins with what would later become the foundation of a revolutionary treatment approach. "We make a good team, Madison," he said as we walked to our respective jobs that morning. "Your practical lab experience balances my theoretical approach perfectly." Over the next year, Jacob and I spent every spare moment developing his concept. We approached Professor Winters, who was immediately intrigued, and offered us lab resources to conduct preliminary tests. The results were promising enough that she encouraged us to apply for a university innovation grant. When we received the grant in junior year, Jacob did something that shocked me. He listed me as co-researcher with equal credit. "I couldn't have done this without you," he insisted when I protested. "This is our project, not just mine." No one had ever given me equal credit for anything. In my family, I was always an afterthought, never a partner. As our research progressed, we began to realize we had something potentially groundbreaking. a pharmaceutical startup incubator, showed interest in our preliminary results and offered to fund further development. Jacob was exhilarated but hesitant. "If we accept their funding, they'll own the intellectual property," he explained. "I think we should file the patent ourselves first." "Can we even do that? Patents cost thousands of dollars." "I've been saving every penny from my jobs," he said. "It's either this or a down payment on a car someday. I'm betting on us." I contributed what little I had saved, and we filed the provisional patent with both our names. It was the biggest financial risk I'd ever taken, but something told me to trust Jacob's vision, to trust our partnership. As we worked closely together, our relationship naturally evolved beyond the lab. Our first kiss happened after we received confirmation that our patent application had been filed successfully. We celebrated with $2 bottles of sparkling cider on the roof of the science building, watching the sunset over campus. Madison, Jacob said quietly, "I think I'm falling in love with you." No fancy dinner, no elaborate gesture, just honest words from an honest man who valued my mind and respected my work. I had never felt more seen in my entire life. By senior year, our relationship had deepened, but we kept it relatively private. We were both focused on our research and studies, and I had no desire to introduce Jacob to my toxic family environment. Then came the breakthrough. Our enzyme inhibitor showed remarkable success in lab trials. The pharmaceutical incubator that had shown interest earlier now wanted to fund a startup company based on our patent. The offer was substantial enough to cover further research, small-scale production, and modest salaries for both of us after graduation. Jacob made another decision that left me speechless. He named me Chief Research Officer to his CEO role. "There wouldn't be a company without you," he said simply. 2 months before graduation, something even more unexpected happened. After a long day in the lab, Jacob took me to the small pond on the edge of campus. It was where we often went to think through research problems. "I've been thinking about our future," he said, suddenly nervous, in a way I'd never seen him, both the company and us. He pulled out a small box with a simple ring inside. Nothing flashy but more meaningful than any expensive diamond. "I want to build everything with you, Madison. The company, a life, maybe someday a family. One where everyone is valued for who they are, not what others expect them to be." We were married 3 weeks later in a private ceremony with only Haley, Professor Winters, and a few close friends present. We decided not to tell my family, not yet. I wanted to graduate first, to have that accomplishment independent of everything else. The company MyPar Pharmaceuticals, a combination of Miller and Parker, secured its first major investment just days after our wedding. The amount was staggering $15 million for further development and testing of our enzyme inhibitor. "This is just the beginning," Jacob promised as we signed the investment documents. "Let's wait to tell your family everything at once. The company, our marriage, all of it. Let's wait until graduation." I agreed, not because I wanted a dramatic reveal, but because I wanted to stand on that graduation stage as Madison Parker summa cum laude biochemistry graduate before I became anything else in my family's eyes. Little did I know how dramatic that revelation would actually be. Senior year flew by in a whirlwind of lab work classes and building our fledgling company. I had dropped my janitorial job after the investment funding came through, but continued working at the cafe, more out of loyalty to my coworkers than financial necessity. Jacob convinced me to reduce my hours so I could focus on finishing strong academically. "You've worked too hard to not graduate with highest honors," he insisted. "The company will still be there after graduation." With less financial pressure, I poured myself into my studies. My thesis on enzyme inhibition mechanisms in genetic disorders received the highest marks from the department committee. Professor Winters pulled me aside after my defense. "This is doctorate-level work, Madison," she said proudly. "You should consider our PhD program." "One step at a time," I laughed. "Let me get through graduation first." 2 months before graduation, I received the official letter. I would be graduating summa cum laude, one of only 3 students in the biochemistry department, to achieve this distinction. Along with this came an invitation to speak at the department's separate honors ceremony. As graduation approached, I faced a decision I'd been avoiding: whether to invite my family. Part of me wanted to graduate alone, surrounded only by people who had actually supported me. But another part, the part still seeking approval I'd never received, wanted my family to witness what I'd accomplished, despite their lack of faith in me. "You should invite them," Jacob encouraged. "Not for their sake, but for yours. For closure, if nothing else." I sent formal invitations to my parents, Amanda, and yes, even Uncle Bradley and his family. I didn't expect much response, so I was surprised when my mother called almost immediately. "We received your graduation announcement," she said, her voice carrying that familiar tone of carefully constructed politeness. "Your father and I will attend, of course. Bradley and Sophia mentioned they'd come as well. It's been too long since we've seen you." Too long because they'd never once visited me at college. Too long because I'd stopped coming home for holidays after one too many humiliating family gatherings. "Amanda sends her regrets," my mother continued. "She's in London for a business conference that weekend." Of course she was. Part of me was relieved. Amanda and I had never been close, but she was the only one who occasionally showed me kindness. I didn't want her to witness whatever drama might unfold. "Will there be networking opportunities at this graduation?" my mother asked, always focused on connections. Bradley mentioned he might bring some colleagues who are interested in university partnerships. Of course they weren't coming to celebrate me. They were coming to network, to turn even my graduation into a business opportunity. "It's just a standard ceremony, Mom," I said, not mentioning the honors distinction or my speaking role at the departmental event. "Well, we'll make the best of it. Your father is booking rooms at the Marriott. We'll have dinner afterward to celebrate." The night before graduation, my family arrived in town. We met for dinner at an upscale restaurant my father had selected. I arrived alone, having told Jacob we should stick to our plan of revealing everything at graduation. "Madison," my mother air-kissed both my cheeks, "you look healthy." Her eyes took in my simple dress, with barely concealed disappointment. Uncle Bradley was already ordering an expensive bottle of wine. "My niece is finally finishing college," he announced to the waiter. "Only took her an extra year compared to her cousins." It hadn't taken me an extra year at all. I'd finished in exactly 4 years despite working throughout. My father at least attempted a greeting before turning the conversation to business. Sophia, now working at Goldman Sachs, as Uncle Bradley had proudly announced to me months ago, talked endlessly about her signing bonus and company perks. "What are your plans after graduation?" Madison Sophia asked with what seemed like genuine curiosity. Before I could answer, Uncle Bradley interrupted. "Probably graduate school, right? Hiding in academia a few more years before facing the real world." "Actually, I started." "Nothing wrong with being a professional student," my father said. "But at some point, you need to think about a real career." I could make a call to Amanda's firm. They might have something in their research department. The assumption that I would need their help to find employment was so typical. "So, Parker." "I already have plans," I said firmly. "Oh," my mother perked up. "Have you accepted a position somewhere?" I thought about telling them everything right then about Jacob, about MePar Pharmaceuticals, about our patent, and the $15 million investment. But something held me back. Perhaps it was wanting to have Jacob beside me when I did, or perhaps it was wanting the public vindication that tomorrow would bring. "I'll tell you all about it tomorrow," I said instead. Uncle Bradley scoffed. "Mysterious. Let me guess. You landed a lab assistant position somewhere. Cleaning test tubes instead of toilets is definitely a step up." The table laughed. I forced a smile and excused myself to the restroom, where I called Jacob. "They're being horrible," I whispered. "I'm not sure I can make it through tomorrow." "Remember who you are," Jacob said firmly. "You're Madison Parker Miller, summa cum laude, co-founder of MePar Pharmaceuticals, and the most brilliant scientist I know. Whatever they say doesn't change those facts." His words steadied me. I returned to the table with renewed resolve to get through this dinner. "We've reserved a private room here for tomorrow evening," my father informed me as I sat down. 7 o'clock sharp. "Bradley's invited some colleagues who might be useful contacts for you." "Actually," I said, "I'll need to check my schedule. I might have other commitments after the ceremony." The look of shock on their faces almost made me laugh. The idea that I might have plans that didn't revolve around their agenda was incomprehensible to them. "What other commitments could possibly be more important than dinner with your family?" my mother asked, genuinely confused. "I guess you'll find out tomorrow," I replied, taking a sip of water and ignoring the uncomfortable silence that followed. That night, back in my apartment, I laid out my graduation attire and tried to calm my nerves. Jacob had his own apartment near campus, though he spent most nights at mine. We'd agreed he would attend the ceremony separately, sitting with Professor Winters rather than my family. "Are you ready for tomorrow?" he asked over the phone as I got ready for bed. "As ready as I'll ever be," I replied, staring at the ceiling. Part of me wishes we could just elope to another country and never deal with the Parkers again. "We could," he said seriously. "The company could operate from anywhere. Say the word, and we'll be on a plane to Switzerland." The offer was tempting, but I shook my head even though he couldn't see me. "No, I need to do this. I need to stand on that stage and claim my accomplishments. And I need them to finally see me, really see me for once." "Then that's what we'll do," Jacob promised. "Tomorrow the Parkers will finally see the incredible woman I've had the privilege of knowing all along." As I fell asleep, I hoped he was right. Graduation day dawned bright and clear, perfect weather for an outdoor ceremony. I arrived early, donning my cap and gown in the staging area with the other graduates. The honors cords felt heavy around my neck, gold for summa cum laude, blue for departmental honors. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. "We're in Section C, Row 5. Your father says the seats are uncomfortable, and the sun is directly in our eyes. Couldn't they have held this indoors?" Not even a good luck message or congratulations, just complaints. Another text followed immediately. "Bradley says the university could use some donations for better facilities. Maybe you can introduce him to the dean for networking." I put my phone away without responding and joined the procession line. Through the crowd, I spotted Jacob in his suit, standing with Professor Winters. He gave me a thumbs up and mouthed, "I love you." Those 3 words gave me more strength than my family ever had. The ceremony began with the traditional pomp and circumstance. The university president welcomed everyone, followed by the keynote speaker, a distinguished alumna who had pioneered sustainable energy solutions. Under different circumstances, I would have been fully engaged in her speech. Instead, I kept glancing nervously at Section C, where my family sat looking thoroughly bored. When it came time for the graduates to receive their diplomas, I took a deep breath. The biochemistry department was called early in the alphabetical sequence. As I approached the stage, I heard the dean announce, "Madison Parker, graduating summa cum laude, with a Bachelor of Science in Biochemistry, recipient of the Winters Research Excellence Award." A smattering of applause came from the audience, louder, near where Professor Winters and Jacob sat. I climbed the steps to the stage, my heart pounding. The dean shook my hand and whispered, "Congratulations on all your accomplishments, Miss Parker. We're very proud." That's when it happened. Uncle Bradley, apparently deciding this was his moment, pushed past the other guests in his row and strode toward the stage. A security guard moved to intercept him, but my father said something that made the guard hesitate just long enough for Uncle Bradley to reach the steps. He bounded up them with surprising agility for a man in his 50s, and reached for the microphone that the dean had just used to announce my name. The dean, stunned by this breach of protocol, didn't react quickly enough to stop him. "Ladies and gentlemen," Uncle Bradley's voice boomed across the graduation lawn, "I'd like to say a few words about my niece." A confused murmur rippled through the crowd. I stood, frozen diploma in hand, unable to believe what was happening. "Madison here," he continued, gesturing toward me with a smile that didn't reach his eyes, is a perfect example of lowered expectations. While her sister and cousins attended Ivy League schools and secured prestigious positions, Madison chose to clean toilets. Nervous laughter came from some in the audience who thought this must be some kind of planned joke. My family, however, was openly chuckling, my father nodding as if Bradley was delivering a profound truth. "You're embarrassing this family," he said, turning to me now. "You clean toilets to pay for school." More laughter from my relatives. Sophia actually had her phone out, possibly recording this humiliation for posterity. When we offered to pay for Princeton, Bradley continued, she turned it down for this state university. And now she expects us to be impressed with her science degree and fancy honors cords. I stood there, unable to move, unable to speak. The diploma in my hand, the one I'd worked so hard for, sacrificed so much for, suddenly felt worthless in the face of such public humiliation. The dean finally recovered from his shock and stepped forward. "Sir, this is highly inappropriate. I must ask you to return to your seat immediately." Uncle Bradley waved him off. "Just giving some family context for your graduates." "Security," the dean called, and two uniformed officers started moving toward the stage. Uncle Bradley, realizing his time was limited, spoke faster. "The Parkers build businesses and economies. We don't play with test tubes and clean bathrooms. But I guess someone has to do the menial work, right?" My mother covered her mouth, but I could see she was laughing behind her hand. My father checked his watch as if merely bored by the spectacle rather than embarrassed by it. The security officers reached the steps just as the dean reclaimed the microphone. Uncle Bradley allowed himself to be escorted back to his seat, looking smug and satisfied at having had his say. I still hadn't moved. Hundreds of eyes were on me, some pitying others, uncomfortable a few, even amused. I wanted the ground to open up and swallow me whole. The dean cleared his throat. "We sincerely apologize for that unauthorized interruption. Before we continue with the ceremony, I'd like to announce that we have a special guest who has asked to say a few words." This wasn't part of the program. I looked at the dean in confusion. "Please welcome to the stage Jacob Miller, CEO of MyPar Pharmaceuticals." A collective gasp went through the audience. MyPar had been in the news recently, after our first round of clinical trials showed promising results. Our company valuation had reached $75 million practically overnight. Jacob strode confidently onto the stage in his tailored suit, looking every bit the successful CEO he was. He walked directly to me, took my hand, and kissed my cheek before turning to the microphone. The look on my family's faces was priceless. Shock doesn't begin to describe it. Uncle Bradley's mouth literally hung open. My father stood up abruptly, as if he couldn't believe what he was seeing. My mother clutched her pearl necklace so tightly I thought it might break. Jacob's warm hand in mine gave me the strength to stand tall as he prepared to address the crowd, and for the first time that day, I felt myself beginning to smile. Jacob stood at the microphone, his posture confident but not arrogant. He still held my hand firmly in his, a subtle show of unity that wasn't lost on the now captivated audience. "Good afternoon," he began, his voice clear and strong. "For those who don't know me, I'm Jacob Miller, CEO and co-founder of MyPar Pharmaceuticals. What many of you may not know is that the groundbreaking enzyme inhibitor technology our company is built upon wasn't solely my creation." He turned to me with a smile that conveyed both pride and deep respect. "The brilliant mind behind the refinement and practical application of our patented technology is standing right here, Madison Parker, who is not only graduating summa cum laude today, but is also the Chief Research Officer and co-founder of a company currently valued at $75 million. The crowd erupted in applause. From the corner of my eye I could see my family in complete disarray. My father had gone pale. My mother was frantically whispering to those around her, likely trying to process how she'd missed such information. Uncle Bradley looked like he'd been slapped. "Madison and I met in organic chemistry class 3 years ago," Jacob continued. "While I had the initial concept for our inhibitor, It was Madison's exceptional lab skills and scientific intuition that turned theory into reality. Our patent bears both our names, because this was truly a partnership from day one. He turned to face my family directly now. And yes, Madison worked cleaning bathrooms and serving coffee to fund her education. She worked harder than anyone I've ever met, often on 4 hours of sleep, never complaining, never giving up. That work ethic and determination are the same qualities that have made her an invaluable business partner and an extraordinary scientist. The dean, clearly impressed, nodded approvingly beside us. The graduates in the front rows were watching with rapt attention. This was certainly not the typical graduation ceremony they had expected. "But there's one more thing I'd like to share today," Jacob said, his voice softening slightly. "Madison is not just my business partner and fellow researcher. As of 3 months ago, she is also my wife." Another gasp rippled through the audience, followed by a new round of applause. Someone in the graduate section let out a whoop of congratulations. We chose to keep our relationship private until today, wanting Madison's academic achievements to stand on their own merit. But I can no longer stay silent when faced with such blatant disrespect toward the woman who has earned every accolade she's receiving today. Jacob handed the microphone back to the dean, who seemed more than happy to reclaim control of his ceremony. "Thank you, Mr. Miller, for that unexpected but welcome context," the dean said diplomatically. "And congratulations to both you and Miss Parker, or Mrs. Miller, on your achievements and marriage. Now let's continue with our graduates." As we prepared to leave the stage, I found my voice at last. "May I asked the dean, gesturing to the microphone. After what had just transpired, he could hardly refuse. I stepped forward, taking a deep breath. "I won't take much time." I began, my voice shaky at first, but growing stronger with each word. "I just want to say that success isn't measured by the name of your university or the size of your paycheck. It's measured by staying true to your passions and working with integrity, especially when those closest to you don't believe in you." I looked directly at my family now. I'm proud of cleaning bathrooms to fund my education. I'm proud of the long nights in the lab. I'm proud of every sacrifice I made to be standing here today. And I'm infinitely grateful to those who supported me along the way, my professors, my friends, and my husband. I handed the microphone back and walked off the stage with Jacob, head held high. The audience erupted in applause, again many standing in support. It was the validation I had never received from my family, now coming from hundreds of strangers who recognized true achievement when they saw it. As the ceremony continued, Jacob and I found seats with Professor Winters. My phone buzzed continuously with messages from my family, but I ignored them all. This was my moment, and I wouldn't let them taint it any further. After the ceremony concluded, we made our way through the crowd toward the science building where the departmental reception was being held. We didn't make it far before my family intercepted us. "Madison?" My father called, his business smile firmly in place as he approached with his hand extended toward Jacob. "Why didn't you tell us about your company? About your marriage?" "Would you have believed me?" I asked simply. My father faltered, his practiced charm momentarily disrupted by the direct question. "Of course we would have." My mother jumped in, already shifting into social climbing mode. "We've always supported your scientific interests, haven't we, Richard?" Jacob squeezed my hand supportively, but remained silent. This was my confrontation to lead. "No, Mother, you haven't," I said calmly. "Not once in the past 4 years have you shown any genuine interest in my work or my dreams." Uncle Bradley pushed forward, his earlier smugness replaced by an eager, almost desperate attempt at familiarity. "Now, Maddie." "It's Madison," I corrected him sharply. "You don't get to use nicknames after what you just did." "That was just a bit of family teasing," he protested weakly. "You know how we Parkers are." "Yes, I do know. You value status over substance. You measure worth by salary and pedigree, rather than character and contribution." Sophia stepped forward, at least having the decency to look somewhat ashamed. We didn't know about your company, Madison. You never told us. Would it have mattered? I asked her directly. Would you have stopped looking down on me if I'd told you I was cleaning bathrooms and building a multi-million-dollar company? Or would you still have laughed along with everyone else at Thanksgiving when Uncle Bradley mocked my career choice? She didn't answer, which was answer enough. My father, ever the businessman, tried a different approach. Let's not dwell on the past. We should celebrate today. Your mother mentioned dinner reservations at 7. Jacob, you'll join us, of course. We have so much to discuss about your company. I have some contacts in the pharmaceutical industry who might be interested in partnership opportunities. The audacity was breathtaking. After years of dismissal and the public humiliation just witnessed by hundreds, he was already angling for ways to benefit from my success. I'm afraid we'll have to cancel that dinner, I said firmly. Jacob and I have our own celebration planned, with people who have actually supported us throughout this journey. Cancel. My mother looked scandalized. But your father has already arranged everything. We have guests coming specifically to meet you. No, Mother. You have guests coming to network with a CEO you just discovered is related to you. There's a difference. Madison. My father's voice hardened the facade of proud parent slipping. Don't be difficult. This dinner is important. More important than how you've treated me for years. More important than the fact that Uncle Bradley just humiliated me in front of the entire university. He apologized for that. My father insisted, though Uncle Bradley had done no such thing. Actually, he didn't, Jacob spoke up for the first time. And even if he had, some things can't be undone with a simple apology. My father turned to Jacob, clearly reassessing the young man he'd initially dismissed as just another state university graduate. You'll find in business, young man, that family connections are invaluable. Burning bridges is rarely wise. In ethical business, Jacob replied coolly, integrity and innovation matter more than nepotism. Madison and I have built our company on those principles, and will continue to do so. I saw Professor Winters approaching from behind my family, concern evident on her face. Several of my lab colleagues were with her, clearly ready to intervene if needed. I think we're done here, I said with finality. Jacob and I have a department reception to attend. Madison Elizabeth Parker, my mother hissed, dropping all pretense of civility. You will not walk away from this family. Not after everything we've done for you. I almost laughed. What exactly have you done for me, Mother? Remind me. When she couldn't answer, I continued. I'm not walking away from the family. I'm choosing to celebrate with people who actually act like family should. My father's face darkened. If you leave now, don't expect our support in the future. I haven't had your support for the past 4 years, I reminded him. I think I'll manage just fine without it for the next 40. With that, Jacob and I walked away, joined by Professor Winters and my lab friends. Behind us, I could hear my mother calling my name, and my father trying to smooth things over with the people nearby who had witnessed the exchange. As we walked toward the science building, I felt lighter than I had in years. The weight of seeking approval from people incapable of giving it had finally lifted from my shoulders. Are you okay? Jacob asked softly. I'm better than okay, I replied truthfully. I'm free. The departmental reception at the science building felt like entering a different world after the drama of the main ceremony. Here, surrounded by professors who had guided me, lab partners who had worked alongside me, and friends who had supported me, I could finally breathe. Speech from the graduate called out Dr. Reynolds, the department chair, as Jacob and I entered. The small crowd of biochemistry majors and faculty applauded. Unlike the discomfort I'd felt on the main stage here, I spoke easily, thanking those who had made my journey possible. I specifically acknowledged Professor Winters, who had taken a chance on a sophomore, desperate for lab experience. Without this department, without all of you, MEPAR Pharmaceuticals wouldn't exist, I concluded. Jacob and I may have had the idea, but it was nurtured in these labs, guided by your expertise, and shaped by countless conversations over terrible vending machine coffee at 2 in the morning. The celebration continued with cake, champagne, and genuine congratulations. No one here cared about my family name or connections. They cared about the work I'd done, the person I'd become. My phone continued to buzz throughout the reception. Texts from my mother ranged from angry demands to tearful pleas. My father's messages were more calculated, emphasizing the business opportunities I was missing by not attending their dinner. Uncle Bradley surprisingly remained silent. "You should turn that off," Haley suggested, nodding toward my constantly vibrating phone. "Today is for celebrating, not dealing with toxic family drama." She was right. I switched my phone to silent and tucked it away. After the reception, Jacob and I hosted a small gathering at our favorite restaurant near campus, the same cafe where I'd waited tables for 3 years. The owner, Maria, had insisted on catering the event herself as a graduation gift. "My favorite employee is now a big-shot CEO," she said, hugging me tightly. "I always knew you were special, Madison." Our chosen family filled the private room. Haley, Professor Winter's lab colleagues, fellow graduates who had become friends. No pretension, no hidden agendas, just genuine connection and celebration. As we were cutting the cake, Haley clinked her glass for attention. To Madison and Jacob she toasted, "For showing us all that success comes in many forms, and the best revenge is living well." And to chosen family I added, raising my own glass, "The people who love you for who you are, not what they expect you to be." The evening was everything the Parker family dinner would not have been: warm, genuine, and filled with laughter. When Jacob and I finally returned to our apartment that night, I felt at peace, despite the day's earlier chaos. The next morning, reality intruded in the form of even more messages. My parents had apparently told the extended family about my pharmaceuticals and my marriage. Suddenly, cousins who had never bothered to contact me during college were sending congratulations, and we should catch up texts. "What do you want to do about all this?" Jacob asked, as I scrolled through the messages over breakfast. "I need time," I said honestly. "I'm not ready to let them back into my life as if nothing happened, but I don't want to carry this anger forever either." "Whatever you decide, I'm with you," he promised. Over the following weeks we settled into our post-graduation life. My pharmaceuticals moved into proper office space in Boston. I took charge of the research division, overseeing a small team of scientists developing applications for our enzyme inhibitor technology. The work was challenging and fulfilling. Every morning I walked into our lab feeling purpose and pride, feelings my family had never fostered, but that I had found on my own path. My parents continued their attempts to reconnect, transitioning from demands to negotiations. Just one dinner, my mother pleaded in a voicemail. "We have so much to discuss." I knew what so much meant. They wanted access to our company, to our connections, to the success they had played no part in building. Instead of responding immediately, I sought therapy to process the years of emotional neglect and the graduation day humiliation. My therapist helped me understand that I didn't owe my family immediate forgiveness or access to my life. "Healing doesn't mean you have to reconnect," she explained. "It means you make choices based on what's healthy for you, now, not out of obligation or lingering need for approval." 3 months after graduation, I received an unexpected call from my sister Amanda. Unlike my parents, she had sent only one brief message after graduation. A simple, "Congratulations on everything. I'm sorry I missed it." "I'm in Boston for a conference," she said when I answered. "Would you be willing to meet for coffee? Just the two of us." Though hesitant, I agreed. We met at a quiet cafe near my office. "I saw the video," she said after we'd exchanged awkward greetings. "Video? Of Uncle Bradley at your graduation? Sophia sent it to everyone before Mother made her take it down. It was horrible. I'm so sorry that happened to you." The sincerity in her voice surprised me. Amanda and I had never been close, but we had never been enemies either. "It wasn't your fault," I said. "No, but I could have been a better sister. I knew how they treated you, and I never really stood up for you. I was so busy trying to be the perfect Parker that I forgot to be a decent human being." Her honesty was refreshing after months of manipulative messages from my parents. "Why are you really here, Amanda?" I asked. She sighed. "Partly to apologize, partly to warn you. Father is planning to reach out to your investors. He's telling everyone he advised you on the business structure of MyPar." "Of course he is," I said, not even surprised. "I've been thinking a lot since seeing that video," Amanda continued, "about what success really means. I have the prestigious job, the Manhattan apartment, everything I was supposed to want, but I'm not sure I'm happy." It was perhaps the most honest conversation we'd ever had. By the end, we weren't suddenly best friends, but there was a new understanding between us. Amanda was the only Parker I chose to keep in limited contact with after that day. As for the rest of the family, I established firm boundaries. I sent a formal legal letter to my father, warning him against making any claims about involvement with MyPar. To my mother, I sent a brief email explaining that I would need time and evidence of changed behavior before considering any family reconciliation. Uncle Bradley eventually sent an apology that read more like a business transaction than genuine remorse. "In light of recent information about your professional success, I recognize my comments at graduation were inappropriate. I hope we can move forward in a mutually beneficial relationship." I didn't respond. Instead, Jacob and I focused on building the life and company we wanted. 6 months after graduation, we used part of our company profits to establish a scholarship for working students at UConn, specifically targeting those balancing multiple jobs with their studies. The Madison and Jacob Miller Working Student Scholarship, I read from the official university announcement, tears in my eyes. To recognize that the path to success isn't always straight or easy, and to honor those who clean serve stock and work their way through education. We named Professor Winters as the scholarship committee chair. The first year we funded 5 full scholarships, the second year 10. A year after graduation, news reached me that Uncle Bradley's investment firm was under investigation for ethical violations. His reputation was in tatters, his social standing diminished. My father called, hinting not so subtly that a family loan might be appreciated during this temporary setback. "I'm afraid that won't be possible," I told him calmly. "As you always taught me, business and family should remain separate." The irony wasn't lost on either of us. 2 years post-graduation, MyPar's enzyme inhibitor therapy received FDA approval for treating a rare genetic disorder. The company valuation soared to over $200 million. Jacob and I were featured in several business and scientific publications as biotech's power couple. My mother sent the clippings with notes, saying how proud they had always been of me. I placed them in a file labeled Revision of History and continued living my life. The most valuable lesson from my journey wasn't about success or vindication. It was about authenticity. Cleaning bathrooms hadn't diminished me. It had built my character. Pursuing my passion, despite discouragement, hadn't been foolish. It had led to innovations that would help countless patients. Most importantly, I learned that family isn't always defined by blood. Sometimes it's the professor who sees your potential, the roommate who helps you find a job, the coworkers who respect your work ethic, and the partner who values your mind as much as your heart. I no longer measure my worth by the Parker standard of prestige and appearances. I measure it by the lives our company improves, by the students our scholarship supports, and by the authentic relationships I've built with people who value the real me, bathroom cleaning experience and all. Has someone ever underestimated you or made you feel less than worthy because you chose a different path? How did you respond? Share your story in the comments below. I read every comment and find so much strength in this community we're building together. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button, subscribe to hear more stories of resilience, and share with someone who might need a reminder that their unconventional journey is valid too. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember, true success comes from staying authentic to yourself, not conforming to others' expectations of who you should be.